Hey there YouTube, it's me, Broken Terrain, and I've got a great crafting video for you today. We're gonna do this fountain, complete with the water. I'm so excited, so follow me and I'm gonna show you right after the drop. I decided to challenge myself this time with a nice speedy crafting build. So I just grabbed out my XPS foam and I started trimming. I had an idea of what kind of craft I wanted to do. My son and I are looking into starting to play some Frostgrave, and one of the scenarios required a well. So I thought, hey, that would make a great piece of terrain and also take care of one of the scenarios in Frostgrave. Let's do it. So I trimmed out some pieces of XPS foam and arranged them in a hexagon. I tried to use a little angled tool, but unfortunately it didn't work out very well for me. So I just lined the pieces up and sketched the general angle and then applied that angle to the rest of the pieces and trimmed out all the edges. You're gonna see that the hexagon didn't turn out perfect. It's a little haphazard, but hey, no one's gonna judge. When they see this fountain on the tabletop, they're gonna love it, and you're gonna love it too. So don't worry so much about your math, ladies and gentlemen. Just knock out a project and keep going till it's finished, and you're gonna be happy. You can see I've marked for the brickwork every quarter an inch up, and then I'll go through with my X-Acto and trim that line up. And then for the rest of the brick, I have my bricks a ½ inch wide. Make sure you stagger your bricks between each layer. And don't forget that tin foil for texture. Very important and shows up really well during the painting stages. Once the lines and tinfoil have been applied, go back in and use a pen to trace through those lines you carved out with the X-Acto. This is going to exaggerate those lines and really accentuate the brickwork that you're laying down. You can see just a little bit of time and it really starts to look good. Now that all 6 pieces have been tinfoiled and have their brickwork laid out, it's time to grab that hot glue and start putting everything together. You see my bricks don't line up so well, but don't worry about it. This is a speed build and we'll cover that up a little later on. Just keep moving forward, YouTube. Once I've attached the last pieces, I'm just gonna hold everything while that hot glue dries. And let's put it on a base. I recommend when you do this, maybe wait for the base. I wanted to put in some stone flooring on the bottom of the fountain, and it would have been easier to sketch the shape without that cardboard base. Instead, I just had to kind of lay the piece down, make some sketch marks, make a trim, bring it back. It was a pain in the butt, but that's all right. Again, it's a speed build and we're just trying to churn out some nice terrain real fast. Eventually I got that piece to fit, a couple ticks to know how to line it back up when I put it back down. And now it's time to draw in some cobblestone for the bottom of our fountain. I've decided to go with a radial pattern, working from the center out. This ended up looking really good, and I was very happy with the results. My first set of marks was just a rough indication of where I wanted the design to go, and then I go back in and press harder with the pen. This is that dollar store ready foam board, and it takes texture really well. Don't forget that tin foil. With the glue dried, it's time to cut that fountain off the larger piece of base. And don't throw it away. I'm going to use it to sketch out the cap piece for my brickwork. I'm going to use my ruler to create a little overhang for the outside. And then with a quick measurement, I'll know just how far to cut for the inside as well. Once you have your marks transferred with pen, it's time to carefully trim that inside out. You don't want to over trim. That will ruin the look of the brick or stonework that you're capping your brick with, so just be careful. Remove the outer sheet, place some glue, and put your cap piece down. Then remove the top lining of paper, and let's create some stonework. Obviously, you hit each angle, and then with a quick ruler look, I mark out and divide the remaining sides into 3 brick pieces. Then with my X-Acto, I go in, I create the lines. Later I'll go in with the tin foil and a pen and widen all these marks out. Don't forget to break those sharp edges. I do it by taking my X-Acto and just shaving around the sharp 90-degree angles. You want this to look like worn stone, and those factory 90-degree angles just wouldn't pull off our look. Well, it's really starting to take shape, and this speed build was really paying off. I was getting very excited. Now it's time to actually start working on the water spout, or the part of the fountain where the water will come out into the pool. I milled a 1" by 1" piece of foam. I'm not sure how tall it was. I measured it against the actual fountain. I wanted it to help block line of sight, and it should also look attractive from a distance. Fountains with an interesting water feature like this often jut far above the fountain's pool, and I wanted this to be no exception. Then with some pen work, I go in and trace some pictograms representing the 4 elements. That's kind of my go-to these days when doing some decorating, but it worked out really well. And then the 2 little areas which I will have as the water spouts, I decided to do a tree motif and have that wrap around the top. It was fairly simple to do and incredibly effective. I mean, it's visually very stunning, very pleasing, and portrays exactly what I'm looking for the fountain. Dig those middle sections out. That's where the spouts of our fountain will sit. And then I go back over just certain pieces of the line work with my X-Acto and pen technique. The pictogram pieces, I'm going to let the pen work speak for itself. Don't forget to break the edges on this piece as well. And then I turn to a very thin chipboard, make some quick measurements. I'm going to trim this out, fold it along the lines, and then on one of the edges I'm going to trim some curves on the outside flaps. And this is going to create my spout. Once I'm happy with the general shape of it, I'm going to create a second one for the other part of the fountain. I'm pretty happy with this. It worked out very well, and I'm excited to get this attached. But don't jump ahead. Remember that texture, tin foil. I'm gonna get the two base pieces with tin foil. I'm gonna break those edges with the knife as well. And then it's time for some hot glue. Let's get this thing put together. Already super happy with this. It's time to glue those spouts in. Just a touch of hot glue. Don't go crazy. We want this to look nice and clean. Now that the first one's in, I'll match the depth with the second one. And here's my idea for a little modularity, because you know, YouTube, you know, I love to make things modular. I grab one of my trusty little magnets, press it into the top, and I've offset it. If you saw me messing with the fender washer just a second ago, I've offset it because the magnet doesn't sit well to the middle of the washer, but it does sit well just off to the side. So I trim the hole, hot glue the magnet in, and then I'm going to go back with the hot glue, cover the magnet up, and I'm going to texture the top as best I can to make the magnet look invisible. Because my hexagon shape was a little off, I decided to stick the fountain towards the back. This is going to hide my bad geometry. And it worked pretty well. I'm pretty pleased. But we gotta come back to these joints here. They still don't look very good. The brick doesn't carry over. So with that ready foam board, I'm gonna cut some small pieces. I only need 3. I'm gonna cut these in half so they're much thinner. And then I'm going to fold them in half. Oh, looks like I messed one up. There we go. Let's trim that right. Much better. Anyway, gonna fold them in half, and I'm gonna hot glue them along the seams. Once hot glued on, go back in with tin foil, give them a nice texture, and break any 90-degree angles with your X-Acto blade. Perfect. It's almost like I know what I'm doing. Almost. What time is it? It's Black Magic Craft base coat time. Half black acrylic paint, half matte Mod Podge. Get that thing covered, baby. Cover all of it. This is going to give you a nice, strong black base coat, and that Mod Podge is going to stiffen up, strengthen, and protect that foam. A very necessary step. Don't you skip it. Don't you do it. All right. You didn't skip it? Okay, good. So what's next? It's paint time. Let's do it. I'm going to start with my Apple Barrel Elephant Gray. I love this color. I need to pick more of it up because I use it so gosh darn much. And let's get this whole piece covered in elephant gray. Get in all those nooks and crannies, cover all that brickwork. Don't forget the cobblestones at the bottom of the fountain and the capstones at the top. You want a nice, thin, but covering layer. Wonderful. With our elephant gray base coat completed, it's time to turn to granite gray, another apple barrel color that I'm absolutely in love with. And we're going to hit the whole thing with a nice generous dry brush. And I couldn't help but go for my penned-in details right away on that piece of fountain. Boy, I was super excited to see how the elemental murals turned out and that really neat, almost elf-like tree decoration across the top. And I wasn't disappointed, YouTube. It looked great. It'll look even better too in the wash stage. But one step at a time. Let's finish our dry brush. And I'm going to hit this whole darn thing with the dry brush. Now I had done a video earlier with some bridges, and I did a two-tone gray look on those bridges, and I think it turned out really well. And I decided I wanted a similar look for this fountain. So in certain places I'm going to go back in with that lighter granite gray and do the entire piece of stone in it. That includes these little supports down at the bottom that I use to hide my sloppy brickwork. And then I'm going to work on the caps for the brick and the bottom and top caps for the fountain piece itself. And this really does a great job of enhancing the look of the fountain and really showing off the interesting geometric details that we've created. And if you try a project like this, I highly recommend a two-tone brick look. It really, really pulls the piece together. And now, possibly my most favorite step, the wash. I'm going to take my homemade black wash and just apply it everywhere. This is going to darken the colors just a touch, but all that black ink is going to flow down into the cracks and crevices and give all that texture an incredible look. Plus it's going to age the stone a bit and make this fountain look ancient, as though it has been sitting out getting weathered for years, decades, heck, why not hundreds of years. And your adventurers are going to be absolutely pumped when they find this fountain. And it's time for highlights. Apple Barrel vanilla ice cream to the rescue. Gonna load my brush, wipe most of the excess or all of the excess off on some paper towel, and then I'm just gonna rub the vanilla ice cream across the details and edges of the fountain. And this is just gonna make all your hard work and texture just pop. As I was finishing the dry brushing, I came up with this great idea to put some little golden coins in the bottom of my fountain. I've got this strange gold glitter paint, and inside the glitter paint is these tiny gold circle pieces of glitter. They are fantastic as gold coins. So using my X-Acto, I fish through a small pile of the glittery paint. I find individual coins and I place them at the bottom of the fountain. And this way, after I add my water effect, hopefully you'll get to see the coins at the bottom of the fountain representing, I don't know, wishes from people from possibly thousands of years ago. How awesome. And woe to the adventurer who tries to step inside the fountain and remove people's wishes coins. Perhaps they'll be cursed. Oh, but let's move on to the water feature. And this is my first ever water feature. And I want to tell you, YouTube, do not get overwhelmed with the thought of adding a water feature. This was so easy. I'm trying to think up more projects where I can do water features. I grabbed the Gorilla Glue epoxy. I ended up using 2 of them. I think you can get them a little cheaper than I did. I got them from the Dollar General at $5 a piece. So my water texture in total cost me $10, but I'm almost positive you can get a cheaper brand or version from a different dollar store. Give it a try. Once it's settled, I tapped it a bit to get the air bubbles out, and you can see in these zoomed in shots the little gold coins peeking through. Oh, it worked, YouTube, and I was super pumped. And now it's time to turn to the fountain itself. We want that water to flow through the spouts. So a little hot glue across some parchment paper, and before it completely cooled, I cut it out and I just kind of rested it on my finger for a bit so that it would naturally dry in this curved shape. And they peel off easy enough. And now I'm just going to lay them in on the spout and measure them out. I found the bead of glue a little too thick for the spout, but this was going to look great. I'm just going to trim the glue out a little bit, and it looks like that water is really rushing out of that spout. Once it's down, trim for length, and then I'll grab the second piece and do the same. The only difference being I will trim and modify the second to match the angle of the water flow from the first piece. I'm pretty happy with this. Slight trim just to make it a little bit better, and then a tiny jut of glue right into the spout, and a little bit of glue to attach the stream to the actual water. And then using the nozzle, I'm actually going to try to lift up and sculpt the hot glue to make it look like a bit of a splash as the water is coming out of the spout into the fountain pool. And I'm going to do the same with the other as well. Then, using the tip of the hot glue gun, I'm going to go back in and texture the bits of hot glue. I'm just going to trace vertical lines down these to give them the sense of water flowing. I'm going to break up that cylinder-esque shape, and this is also going to give us some texture to apply paint on, because I love the way these turned out, but the hot glue looks a little yellowish green, and I'm gonna want to remedy that because we do want our players to want to sneak up and take a sip from the fountain, right? Right? Then I'm going to take my hot glue gun and I'm going to create some circles or ripples. So as that fountain water hits the pool, it causes ripples along the surface. I'm just going to trace out 2 of them for each one. Nothing too fancy. You might not be able to see them too well right now, but they're going to really pop when we go back in with a dry brush and exaggerate that texture. Going to go back in to dry brush the water. I'm going to use my vanilla ice cream and I'm going to tint it just a little bit with a turquoise blue. I want to give the water a bluish hue, ever so slightly. We're going to hit those circles of hot glue and the streams of hot glue themselves. And don't be afraid to really put it on there. I really want to get rid of that yellowish color, and I'm going to handle that with a nice hearty dry brush of this vanilla ice cream tinted with turquoise blue. I'm also going to go in and hit the edges. So where the edges of the water meet the stone, I'm just going to add the slight hint of this whitish blue color. That's going to create a nice water line within the fountain and really show off this incredibly easy water feature. As always, I want to thank you for watching this video, for letting me entertain you. If you liked it, hit like, please subscribe, and share the video. I want to grow my channel and I need your help. Thank you so much. We're just about finished with this craft. It was a speed build. It did take a couple days, but only a couple hours over the course of several days. I highly recommend you give it a shot. Don't be afraid of trying out water feature or new things. And we get to see it on the table. I'm pretty excited. The adventurers had found the ancient fountain. It's deep in a ruined city. But oh no, it looks like the cultists have gotten there first. Get in there, heroes, so that those cultists can't take the magical waters and bend them to their evil, insidious plans. Man, I love this build. That fountain is absolutely eye-catching. And don't forget, we made the top modular. At any time, we can take our figure of Freya off and add a different topper to the fountain. And this will allow us to swap and change it out randomly and at whim to fit our needs. It's going to look great on the D&D table, and it's going to work really well as a Frostgrave scenario piece. Can't wait. As always, like each other, love one another, and craft on.